You're watching the Daily Climate Show on Sky News. On today's programme, it's day 2 of President Biden's climate summit. We speak to the European Commissioner for Climate Action about the EU's targets. Now, China is undertaking the world's largest environmental migration project to tackle the impact of climate change on rural communities. And tomorrow, the Climate Live Festival kicks off with 24 hours of global youth-led concerts. We hear from singer-songwriter Declan McKenna, who's taking part. Hello and welcome to the UK's only daily climate news show, where we track the changes happening to our world right now and meet those coming up with the solutions. And we aim to take you to the heart of the climate crisis, explain the data driving the changes that are already affecting us, but also show you just how far we've come. And it's the second day of the American-convened Leaders' Summit on climate change. And today, President Biden said great progress had been made, but it was only a start. Well, coming up, we'll have all the key developments from day 2 of the summit. But many of the main announcements were made by countries ahead of the main meeting taking place, including a target from the EU to cut carbon emissions by at least 55% by 2030, compared with 1990 levels. Well, earlier I spoke to the European Commissioner for Climate Action, Frans Timmermans. The EU has agreed to cut its emissions by 55% by 2030. The European Parliament wanted 60%. So have you settled for too small a cut?
Well, I think we've found a way out that would allow Council to agree with it and Parliament to see that it got a lot out of these negotiations, because now we can also operate with a so-called carbon budget, which will make it clearer how much we're using up of the room we have. We have more clarity on our trajectory to 2040 and 2050. We will have a greater influence of scientific evidence in our decision-making, and that's all thanks to the negotiating powers of Parliament. So I think at the end of the day, everybody was very happy with the result. And yet, some would say that 55% doesn't go far enough. Independent scientific analysts, Climate Action Tracker, for example, says the EU would need to set a target of 65%, not 55%, and fund climate action abroad in order to have commitments that are compatible with the Paris Agreement. Apart from the UK, there's nobody else on the planet that is doing as much as the EU is doing. So in that sense, I believe we're together with the UK. We're setting a trend, and now others are following, like the United States, and hopefully also other big emitters such as China will follow suit. And I believe if you put all these efforts together, we could really get to climate neutrality by the middle of the century. And I think we need to start immediately. And what we've done with the climate law compels the European Union to stick to that trajectory. And I believe this is what needs to be done also by other major emitters. At the end of the day, frankly, I don't care who wins. I mean, everybody wins. And if the UK is ahead of the EU, good for them. But we'll see each other in 2050, and hopefully both we will reach climate neutrality by then. And you can see our full interview with Frans Timmermans at youtube.com/Sky News. Let's take a look now at some of the day's other climate news. And day 2 of the US President's Climate Summit has been focusing on how technology can help the world achieve a net zero, climate-resilient economy. Joe Biden wants to spend trillions of dollars on clean energy technology to boost the US economy and help create jobs while saving the planet. Speakers at the summit today have included Bill Gates, Michael Bloomberg, and business executives. Extinction Rebellion activists have dumped fake coal outside the Lloyds headquarters in London. Campaigners say it's part of ongoing protests aimed at exposing the insurance industry and its investment in fossil fuel companies. Lloyds of London says it plans to phase out all existing insurance policies for fossil fuel projects by 2030. Scientists say crops could be naturally modified to make them more resistant to climate change. Researchers found grass crops like wheat can borrow genes from other species. The process, known as lateral gene transfer, enables them to speed up evolution and adapt to new environments more quickly.
It looks set to be one of the driest Aprils on record. The Met Office says there's been an average of 12.8 millimetres of rain across the UK so far this month. That's just 18% of average levels. It comes after the UK recorded the coldest start to April since 2013. The habitats of endangered chimpanzees will be studied by researchers at the University of Leicester. Laser scanners are going to be used to create three-dimensional images of the primates' nests in the Congo. The project will look at the forest and woodlands in the nature reserve where they live. Climate change is driving migration around the world and in China's agricultural rural communities. Droughts in the northwest of the country have become more frequent. They used to happen every 4 years, but since 1991, they now happen in this region every 2 years. In Ningxia, over the past 60 years, temperatures have risen by 2.1 degrees Celsius, with more than half of that increase taking place from 2001 to 2010. As a result, more than 1 million farmers have migrated from the south to the north, to the much better irrigated basin of the Yellow River. Our Asia correspondent Tom Cheshire reports now from northwest China.
This was once a thriving village, Xihaigu in Ningxia, northwest China. The UN has described this as one of the most uninhabitable places in the world. People here still eked out an existence for years, carving homes out of the hills. But temperatures have risen 2 degrees over the last half-century. That's twice as fast as the global average, and a similar rise to what the world is trying to avoid with the Paris Climate Agreement. The land simply could no longer support the people who lived on it. So the village was abandoned, its houses destroyed. This is a ghost village, and while it might look like a relic of the past, it could be a glimpse of the future as climate migration takes hold worldwide. This was always a tough place to live, but climate change made it impossible. The government removed the last of the villagers in 2020. They went to this new town, several hundred miles north. They still need to work hard in the fields, but irrigation that was impossible down south makes agriculture here much more reliable. Mrs. Ma used to live in one of those cave houses in Xihaigu and was one of the first to come here around 20 years ago. China is the world's biggest polluter, and it's already having to deal with the effects of climate change. The same may be in store for the rest of the world if it fails to meet its targets. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Ningxia.
Teaching children about climate change isn't part of the national curriculum in any country except Italy. But a new international effort has been launched to educate 3 to 7-year-olds on sustainable habits. It's called the Earth Warriors Scheme, and Dominic Bond and his son Billy are taking part.
Are you an Earth Warrior?
Yeah, I am.
What do you do when you're being an Earth Warrior?
I save the Earth
How do you help to save the Earth?
by not using fish.
By not using fish.
I mean, not eating fish.
Okay.
Well, Shweta Bari co-founded Earth Warriors, and she thinks education is a powerful tool for combating climate change.
Giving children the opportunity and the knowledge that they need to know about climate change, the things that they can do to combat it in the future, can really empower them to be the future change makers. It's not about teaching them anything complex or scary, and it's very much framed in a positive way around building their love and bond with nature.
Now, I just want to show you the real-time power mix for Great Britain, because over the last couple of days, we've seen some of the highest solar generation levels of the year. And the forecast for this weekend is for near record levels of solar power. Wind generation remains low, so overall renewable output is around 1/3 of the generation mix. You can see 38% there. Now, solar power tends to be the highest in spring rather than summer when you might expect it, and that's because solar panels perform better in cooler temperatures. Now, tomorrow, youth climate groups from around the world will come together to launch Climate Live. There'll be 24 hours of live music streams with artists, activists and scientists all taking part. It's hoped the performances will help unite people and reach those who aren't currently engaged in the crisis. Well, earlier I spoke to singer Declan McKenna, who's performing a special live set for the event.
For a long time now, I've been feeling the climate crisis has been vital for me to speak up about and for me to be a part of campaigning for. And right now, really the important thing for me is holding the government, our government particularly, to account, to keeping global temperatures below a 1.5 degree increase. I think that is a massively important goal. We're seeing the impacts of pollution and rising temperatures worldwide, and people are already suffering.
And what about in terms of changing attitudes? Do you feel that they are changing? I mean, or do you think it's a generational thing? What's your opinion?
It is one thing for us individuals to make changes to our lifestyle and demand things. It is another for our governments and our, the systems at play to change and to become sustainable for our future on this planet. So yes, the attitudes, I think even seeing the last 5 years, I've been very much engaged, and the change has been very obvious in our attitudes. It's whether it can materialise within the government.
This year marks the 51st Earth Day, the world's largest environmental campaign. So let's take a look at how people around the world have been celebrating. Well, that's it for today's show, but you can get your climate fix over the weekend with our podcast. On this week's episode, more on those Earth Day celebrations around the world and what we learned from the Leaders' Climate Summit hosted by President Biden. ClimateCast is available wherever you normally get your podcasts from. And of course, you can watch our weekly digital show with Becky Cottrell on Sky News social channels, our app and our website. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.